I've broken my long motorway video down into shorter sections to make it easier to digest. This is part 3, which covers dealing with motorway junctions, including understanding road signs and road markings, and how to identify drop lanes and gain lanes, and planning and awareness around junctions. Now let's look at motorway junctions. Junctions will be clearly signposted, normally 1.5 miles in advance, like this sign on the left here. There are no road markings or road signs telling us that any lanes go to particular places, so all 3 lanes will allow us to continue on the motorway, which is what we want to do. So we stay in the left lane unless we're overtaking. As we get close to the junction, we get the countdown marker boards, like this one here. You'll get 3 stripes at 300 yards from the junction, 2 stripes at 200 yards from the junction, and 1 stripe when you're just 100 yards away. If you're not sure what a yard is, it's almost exactly the same as a metre. Because we're not leaving at this exit, all we need to do is keep an eye on lane 2 and make sure that no one from lane 2 is going to cut across at the last minute in order to leave. And they're not. The next junction is slightly different. Take a look at the sign over lane 1. Notice the arrow pointing straight down towards lane 1. The highway code says a downward pointing arrow means get in lane. What this sign is telling us is that lane 1 is going to leave at the next exit and go to the A322. The other 3 lanes, lane 2, lane 3 and lane 4, are all going to continue on the motorway. Lane 1 is what we call a drop lane because it drops off the motorway at the junction. So to continue on the motorway, I don't want to be in lane 1 because lane 1 is going to leave. I happen to already be in lane 2 because I've just overtaken someone, and I now won't return to lane 1 because I know I'm going to have to get out of it shortly. We're 1 mile away from the exit according to this sign, and at 60 miles an hour it will take me a minute to cover a mile. So if I was in lane 1, I know that I've got a minute to find a safe gap to move across to lane 2, so there's no rush. Notice the line separating lane 1 and lane 2, which I've highlighted in yellow. At this 1 mile marker board, this line changes to make it stand out more, to highlight the fact that lane 1 is going somewhere different from lanes 2, 3 and 4. So as the video restarts, keep an eye on that line between lane 1 and 2. Notice how it stands out much more and it's different from the lines between the other lanes. If you missed the sign over the lane for some reason, this different white line should highlight to you the fact that lane 1 is going somewhere else and it's a drop lane. As we pass this half-mile marker, you'll see the line changes again, the line between lane 1 and lane 2, making it stand out even more now. And as we reach the junction, we get a final reminder with this overhead gantry sign. Notice the split in the sign. Lanes 2, 3 and 4 have a single sign bridging all 3 lanes, saying that all 3 lanes are going to the same place with the downward pointing arrows. The sign is split. There's a different sign over lane 1 with a different set of destinations and the A322. Lane 1 only goes to the A322 with no option to continue on the M3. Lanes 2, 3 and 4 only continue on the M3 with no option to leave on the A322. So if a lane drops and you lose a lane at one side of the junction, it's reasonable to expect that you'll gain a lane on the other side of the junction. Currently we have 3 lanes, whereas before the junction we had 4 lanes. And as we approach the point where the slip road is going to join us, we get this sign on the left explaining what's going to happen. This sign shows 3 arrows going straight ahead, which represents the 3 lanes on the motorway continuing. It also shows 2 arrows coming in at an angle from the left, which represents 2 lanes on the slip road. The leftmost arrow represents the left lane on the slip road, and this bends around and creates a new lane on my left. This is the lane we're gaining. The right-hand lane of the slip lane, however, crosses the dotted line and merges in with the lane I'm currently in. So I know I need to watch out for traffic trying to merge into my lane, and I need to create a gap for them if possible. Looking in the far left lane in the distance, I can see two lorries very close together. I'm travelling faster than them, so I'm going to catch them up very shortly. I suspect that the second lorry is going to try and overtake the first because he's so close, and I don't want to be beside him if he changes lanes. That's why I've moved out to lane number 3. And there he goes, just as I expected. The clue for me there was the fact that the second lorry was so close to the first, as if he was getting ready to overtake it. Now let's look at a more complex junction. This one is where the M3 meets the M25. The M25 goes in two different directions, so the junction has to offer us the choice of either of those directions. This time, look at the vertical dotted lines separating the sign. Both lane 1 and lane 2 are drop lanes going off to the M25 towards Heathrow. So only lane 3 and lane 4 continue as the M3. Lane 3 also offers the option of joining the M25 towards Gatwick. If I stay in lane 1 or lane 2, then I'll leave the M3, and I don't want to do that, so I need to move across to lane 3 when it's safe to do so. Now I'm nearer the junction and we get the gantry signs across the lanes. This presents the same information but in a clearer way. There's a sign bridging lane 1 and lane 2 saying that those two lanes go to the M25 towards Heathrow only. There's a sign bridging lanes 3 and lane 4 saying that both those lanes continue on the M3 towards London. And there's an additional sign over lane 3 only saying that that lane also offers the choice to go towards Gatwick on the M25. So lane 1 only goes towards M25 Heathrow. Lane 2 only goes M25 towards Heathrow as well. Lane 3 allows me either to follow the M3 to London or follow the M25 towards Gatwick. Lane 4 only allows me to follow the M3 towards London. I want to follow the M3 towards London, so I can choose lane 3 or lane 4. I'm going to choose lane 3 because effectively that's the left lane on the motorway after lanes 1 and 2 drop and we drive on the left. Notice how the white line between lane 2 and lane 3 is different from the other white lines, indicating again that lanes 1 and 2 are going to drop and go somewhere different from lanes 3 and lane 4. Effectively we've got two separate roads running here. And after we pass that half-mile marker, that line changes again to make it stand out even more. And as we get to the junction, we get additional signs. The sign on the left with the arrows shows what's about to happen. First, lane 1 and lane 2 will both drop to the left. As you work your way up the sign, lane 3 then splits, creating a new lane for traffic heading towards Gatwick on the M25. So we end up with 5 lanes in the junction and only 2 lanes continuing on the M3 towards London. And the gantry sign over the road is just a repeat of the previous gantry sign we saw. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe. Part 4 in this series will look at dealing with leaving the motorway, including identifying junctions, understanding signs and countdown markers, planning for the junction, and speed awareness when you leave the motorway. Thanks for watching.